As a successful writer, I've always prided myself on my self-control and discipline. But sometimes, even the most steadfast among us can be tempted, especially when we least expect it. This is the story of how a simple plumbing appointment turned into something much more complicated. It was a typical Monday morning, and I was getting ready for work when I noticed a small leak coming from the pipe under my kitchen sink. I quickly grabbed a bucket to catch the water and called a plumber to come and take a look. I didn't give it much thought, assuming it would be a quick fix and I'd be on my way. The plumber, whose name was Jake, arrived a short time later. He was tall, muscular, and had piercing blue eyes. I couldn't help but notice how attractive he was as he assessed the situation. I tried to push those thoughts out of my head and focus on the task at hand. Jake quickly diagnosed the problem and told me he would need to go to his truck to get the necessary parts. I offered to pay him up front, but he insisted on finishing the job first. As he left, I couldn't help but feel a flutter of excitement in my stomach. I told myself it was just because I was relieved to have the problem taken care of, but deep down, I knew it was something more. When Jake returned, he got to work on the pipe. I watched as he skillfully maneuvered his tools and made quick work of the repair. I couldn't help but be impressed by his expertise. As he worked, we made small talk, discussing our jobs and our families. I found myself becoming more and more drawn to him. As Jake finished up, he turned to me and smiled. "All done," he said. "Good as new." I couldn't help but feel a pang of disappointment that our time together was coming to an end. As I walked him to the door, he turned to me and said, "Listen, I know this is probably not appropriate, but I just wanted to say that I think you're really beautiful. And I can't stop thinking about you." I was taken aback. I had been feeling the same way, but I never thought he would feel the same. I looked into his eyes, and I could see the sincerity there. I knew in that moment that I was tempted. I hesitated for a moment, but then I leaned in and kissed him. It was a passionate, intense kiss, and I could feel the attraction between us. I knew I was playing with fire, but I couldn't help myself. The kiss lasted for what felt like an eternity, but eventually, we pulled away. Jake looked at me, his eyes full of desire. "I've wanted to do that since I walked in the door," he said. I smiled, feeling a sense of excitement and danger that I hadn't felt in a long time. I knew I was taking a risk, but I couldn't resist the temptation. We spent the rest of the day together, exploring the city and getting to know each other better. It was a whirlwind romance, full of passion and excitement. But deep down, I knew it couldn't last. As the days turned into weeks, I began to realize the gravity of what I had done. I was married to Mark, a kind, loving man who had always been there for me. I couldn't just throw that away for a fling with Jake. I knew I had to end things with Jake, but I didn't know how. I was torn between my loyalty to Mark and my desire for Jake. I felt like I was living a double life, and I hated myself for it. In the end, I knew I had to come clean. I sat Mark down and told him everything, from the moment Jake walked in the door to the passionate kiss we shared. I could see the hurt and betrayal in his eyes, and I knew I had broken his heart. Mark was devastated, and I couldn't blame him. I had betrayed his trust, and I knew I would never be able to fully make it up to him. I begged for his forgiveness, but I knew it would take time. As for Jake, I knew I couldn't see him again. I had made my choice, and it was Mark. I couldn't continue to lead Jake on, knowing how much it would hurt Mark. It's been months since that day, and I still think about Jake from time to time. But I know I made the right choice. Mark and I are working on rebuilding our relationship, and I'm determined to make it work. I've learned a lot from this experience. I've learned that temptation can be a powerful force, but it's up to us to resist it. I've learned that our actions have consequences, and that we need to think carefully before we act. But most of all, I've learned that true love is worth fighting for. Mark has stood by me, even when I didn't deserve it. He has shown me what it means to love and be loved, and I will never take that for granted again. So if you're out there listening, and you're tempted to stray, I urge you to think twice. Our actions have consequences, and we need to be mindful of that. But if you do make a mistake, don't give up. True love is worth fighting for, and it's never too late to make things right. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel for more like this. Until next time, take care. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more engaging content.